So, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
That's kind of weird. This is kind of like what we do at night. Hey, how was your day?
Is someone sitting here?
Yes.
Is this your friend?
That's Ernie and Winston are sitting right there. Anyway, so social media, city, you're doing some really cool stuff, and you won an award for it. So tell me about that award.
So we did. We won last year the UBCM, which is Union of British Columbia Municipalities Community Engagement Award. And it really wasn't about, we started to do things differently just on traditionally engaging our community, like having a budget meeting at the rec center where parents are going to take their kids to play hockey and ringette and all that sort of stuff. But we really jumped in online through Twitter and Facebook. And I like that acronym that you had there, because we don't use it like most cities do it. It says, the road's closed. We do that stuff, but we ask questions. We go through some controversial issues every once in a while, and we go out there, tell us what you don't like about our garbage system. And it floods in. And I have the belief that the conversation's going to occur online anyways. So why not facilitate the conversation, because then you can be a part of it. Because if you don't, it's happening somewhere else, and then you don't get to participate. And in politics, that's happening somewhere else, and if you don't know about it, it's going to catch you off guard when you're on John McComb's show, and he asks a question about something that he's following on Twitter, and if you're not engaged in that conversation, you're going to get caught off guard, and you're in trouble.
Well, what was the evolution, though, of social media in the city of Port Coquitlam? Because you've been mayor since 2008. You were on council. It seems to me that really when you became mayor, that's when the social media light bulb went off. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we were doing it a little bit beforehand, but I was really engaged in it before I became mayor, so I just started to drive that through everything that we did, and it's now become the corporate culture that when we're thinking about communicating with our residents, when we get the whiteboard out or the presentation from our communication staff, social media is right at the top of it.
Is it in everything you're doing now? So,
absolutely everything.
So when you're talking about parks and recreation, you're talking about budget planning or Canada Day celebrations. You're thinking of a social media component to that.
It's not even a discussion whether we should do it or not.
Wow.
It's just part of the way we do it. So and it doesn't matter if you're in a rec center and you're putting on a special event for a swimming event, or we're changing, a bylaw at the other end of the spectrum. It's just part of everything that we do now.
What about in terms of who has access to, because the Twitter handle for the city is City of Poco. So City of Poco. Who has access to that?
Well, that's one of the things that we hear about from other municipalities, but probably other businesses as well, is, we need to have a policy to control this, and, what happens if someone says something? Well, we always tell people, do you have a policy for the telephone? Because someone can pick up the telephone and phone a whole bunch of people and say, man, oh man, the city is really bad, and it could be one of our employees that says that. The same way that they could say it online. So we don't, but we do have control over who has administrative access through Hootsuite to tweet out. So it's not like every employee has the ability to tweet via our account, but we also don't have it controlled by one person. So we have 2 or 3 people that have the ability to do that. And in fact, we trained our welcome receptionist for lack of a better term. When you walk into City Hall, there's someone there that tells you where everything is and what's going on. That person is our primary Facebook and Tweeter.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. So
I shouldn't have told you that.
Yeah.
Because, Dave's coming down to City Hall now, sucking up to her.
I'm totally dating her.
Oh.
Totally. But anyways, so
I'll give her the heads up.
Yeah,
But anyways, because everything goes through her, so she is engaged with all of the ads, because she's picking up, when you phone the city of Port Coquitlam, she's picking up the phone. So she's engaged in everything that's going on in our city. And so she's the one that goes out on it. Sometimes if we have to react to an insane resident that's tweeting about something that's not even in our jurisdiction, Dave.ca, it sort of goes up the hierarchy, and different department heads then get called in as if it was an emergency that would come over the telephone. So we're just not phoning people back, we're engaging it on Twitter.
You know what's interesting, because I had a retail client and they did not want anyone on Twitter. And then I said, well, your cashiers, who you pay, say, $10 an hour to, and handle money and handle credit cards, you trust them to speak with your clients, your customers, face to face, but you won't allow them to speak out. I think that's really interesting that the receptionist does that as well, but what other people can do that? And is there a fear that you're not double talking, that's not what I meant, is that you're saying the same messages or even going to have mixed messages because different voices are using that official account?
Well, actually, we have multiple accounts because we have a youth page. So our youth services has their own website and their own Twitter and all that sort of stuff. Our Parks and Rec, we have our Healthy Communities that has their own page to engage people on healthy living activities.
Yeah.
And they have their own accounts to tweet and all that sort of stuff because you're hitting different demographics. Right? When you have an organization that big, you can't sort of speak from one voice all of the time because you're hitting different groups. So we've spread it out that way as well. And then us personally, you know, I've obviously my own Twitter and Facebook and all that sort of stuff. So I do my own tweeting and my own Facebook engagement that's separate from the city, but obviously it's about the city.
Well, when you and the other mayors in the regions have your annual sleepover pajama parties and so on and talk.
Pillow fights,
right. What do you say to them to encourage them to get on social media for the folks who are not on social media?
Similar to the message that I talked about before, is people are out there talking about you anyway, so why not be a part of the conversation? Why not engage in the conversation? Why not even start the conversation? Yesterday I asked, I'm also participating in a global cities conference right now, and I asked the question, what makes a sustainable, livable city?
You asked that
I asked it on Facebook yesterday.
Facebook and Twitter, yeah.
And it's interesting because I use Facebook and Twitter differently. I don't, you know, my Twitter feed goes right into my Facebook, but sometimes I'll ask specific questions on Facebook because I know the people following on my Facebook are more Port Coquitlam residents, where people following me on Twitter are more regional. So regional issues I take to Twitter more frequently, local issues I take to Facebook, because for me I can have a better, because I don't have the ability to sit and have real-time Twitter conversations just with my job. So, but Facebook allows you to have more of a delayed type conversation. Yeah. And so I asked the question on Facebook, not Twitter, and I was reading it on the way here. I had 24 responses of people talking about what they think a livable city should be all about. And so when I get home tonight, I'm going to start questioning some of their choices and say, really, is that, you know, is that where you want your tax dollars to go? Is that an effective use? You know, I don't mind having a debate with someone on Facebook either, and I think that's important.
But you're engaging. It's an actual conversation, as if the residents were right here.
That's
but
right.
What was also interesting, you talked about, you know, not having time to do something. Mayor Moore did something really cool last week, I think it was. And it was funny because
Thursday night.
Yeah, because I said, you know, hey, you're going to come to my thing, and I need you here. And I switched the time on him, and then there was vulgarity. But then he then said, I'm taking the bus home. I said, okay, cool. And then about 5 minutes later.
But let me just cut in there. I was in Vancouver for a meeting, and I was taking the 160 home at 7 o'clock or so at night, and I'm talking with Dave on the phone.
Outside my office.
This conversation. I'm sure he drove past me as I'm at the bus stop. So as I'm at the bus stop, and I get on the bus, and the bus takes about an hour and 15 minutes to get home. So I thought, I'm playing solitaire. I thought, I can use my time a little bit better in this. So I put out on my Facebook, on the 160, got an hour and 15 minutes, want to have a virtual town hall meeting, ask me anything about Port Coquitlam. And so for an hour and 15 minutes, and sore thumbs later, I had this conversation. It was interesting, though. The few people that were participating, like actually writing questions, weren't from Port Coquitlam. One person talked about amalgamation, which is always a big issue.
And I gave Tri-Cities.
In the North Shore, everywhere, right? This guy's from Vancouver, asked about amalgamation, and I sort of gave this technical answer of why I don't think it's a good idea, but always open to new ideas and how it hasn't worked in Ontario and other places. And then our residents chimed in. And they started saying, there's no way that's going to happen in Port Coquitlam. We love our Coquitlam. And then someone else, and then he went back and forth. And this thing just started taking off. And finally, at the end of it, I got to City Hall, an hour and 15 minutes later, and the guy goes, okay, I give up. But it was great, and all the people that liked it. And so even though there wasn't a lot of Port Coquitlam people asking me questions, there was a huge amount of engagement. It was really, I'll do it all the time now because I take transit everywhere. So I'm going to do it. Well, you and I have done it before. Dave and I'll be driving, and he goes, I'm carpooling with the mayor. Any questions you'd like to ask him?
About a year ago, I started this drive-in with the mayor or something, and he's like, stop telling people we're together. And then, some of it would be, because it would be like my non-political friends asking him.
What's your favorite band?
Yeah, but he would answer.
Coldplay.
Son of a bitch.
Beastie
Boys. It was good.
It was Beastie Boys.
It is. Okay, can you bust out any Beastie Boy raps right now?
No sleep till Brooklyn.
And speaking of going into elections in November, how will social media frame what you're going to be doing in November when you seek re-election?
Well, social media is I'll just continue the conversation that I'm having.
Yeah.
You know, part of forming my platform is the conversation I asked people yesterday.
Yeah.
About what makes a livable city, what makes Port Coquitlam a great city to live in. So I'm going to continue asking those questions, and when I come out with my platform, it'll be related to what the people were telling me about.
Well, let me ask you this as well. You're a fairly young mayor. You're 40 years old.
Much younger than you.
You are not. You're like a year. We're going to have an argument as we would on the phone right here. And so you're 40 years old, probably one of the youngest, if mayors, but the tallest freestanding mayor. You're very tall. But how does social media then play? Do you think it plays more with you naturally because of your age? And Mayor Moore also has an IT sort of background as well, versus say someone who might be in their 50s or 60s. Being a mayor or councillor who've not really had that. Like, so it's a long, convoluted way of saying, do you think your age plays any role in your ability to adapt to social media as a politician?
I think it does, but it shouldn't. Right? You know, yeah, I build my own website at gregmoore.ca. And
what was that website again?
gregmoore.ca.
Okay.
And gregmoore.ca is an ability to engage with the residents. So I have a lot more abilities than I think most people do to bring in my Twitter and my YouTube channel and all that sort of stuff in there and tie it all together. But it shouldn't be, well, we all know, it shouldn't be a barrier. It's not much harder than writing an email. Yeah. Actually, it's a little bit harder because you got to fit it in 140 characters. Yeah. But generally, I think the fear is, you know, people read one or two stories about how bad it went for someone, mostly because the person was a moron on what they did. You know, they tweeted a picture of themselves that they meant to send to their wife and blah, blah, blah. And
or their mistress, that's right. Also awkward.
You know, so therefore, Twitter's bad. Yeah. But they don't look at all the good parts of it.
Yeah. If you were not using social media, would that make you a better or worse mayor?
Much worse.
But, no, but seriously, does it affect your popularity, your engagement? Does it affect how you manage the city of Port Coquitlam because you are on social media?
Absolutely. I do a mayor's question of the week, and I'm not as good as getting it out.
Weekish.
Weekish, yeah. It's usually every second week. But to ask our residents, and it might be some are very important questions about policy decisions that we're having. You know, should a piece of property be rezoned? Should, you know, we're bringing in these changes. What do you think of it? Yeah. Those sort of things. And it absolutely affects, I think, my thinking on how to govern. Yeah. And I think, you know, we're all smart enough to figure out when someone's bamboozling you and not really telling you the truth or pulling your leg, that sort of thing. But generally, it's a very, much like my example of my virtual town hall meeting, and I know it's almost repeating everything that you guys all know, but it's self-governing. You know, I didn't have to defend not amalgamating with Coquitlam and Port Moody. Our residents defended it, and they stuck up for their community.
The real community came into the virtual world and
that's right,
and voiced their concerns, which is really cool.
So you know, I use it partially about promoting things that are going on in the city, because I know I have a lot of people that follow me, and I get a lot of people go, wow, I never would have come to this if you hadn't put it on your Facebook or Twitter. Right. But I also use it more so, I think, for that community engagement and trying to create discussions with people.
Sure. Let me ask any questions for Mayor Moore from our audience. Anything at all? Terry.
I think I haven't found that in Port Coquitlam at the municipal level, because, you know, we're 60,000 people. It's not like I know everybody in town, but it's 1 or 2 degrees of separation. So that's what I like Facebook more, because it really puts a personality behind someone. If someone's saying something really not offensive, but something I really question, I can go find out who they are and what they've done other places and all that, and then I judge it. The stuff that I do regionally, because I'm also the chair of the Metro Vancouver Waste Management Committee, and, you know, we've been talking about garbage and waste management and waste to energy and incineration and some of those very controversial topics. And you do have a lot of environmental groups that will really do a very good job to leverage online and social media to taint the picture of what everybody's thinking. So I think you just need to figure that out and figure out who's saying what and where it's coming from. And it's, you know, online there's always a trace, right? There's always a fingerprint somewhere. And I think that maybe goes to my background. I can figure out the fingerprint of who says it, whereas some people can't, and they see it and they go, oh my goodness, this must be what everybody's thinking, because 10 people put it on my Facebook that this is bad.
Any other questions? Yes?
Hi there. I'm
It's a good question. I think similar to the previous question, my discussions on local issues seem to be more genuine. And not that an environmental group or a business group isn't genuine, but they definitely have a specific interest, and you can read through it. You know, I know when the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, CFIB, is telling us that we're taxing too high, I know what their slant is. But when Mary comments on my stuff, or local residents do, I know who they are. I might not know them, but I know that they're a local resident sharing their opinions. And so the local issues, it really helps out substantially. The regional issues, after you peel away all of the different groups, because they'll send us letters, they'll send us reports. It's not about engaging online. They'll use every method possible to influence sort of policy decisions, which is fine. That's their role. But it's not as genuine as the local conversation that occurs. But that local conversation, and I think I see it when I follow Mayor Watts or even Mayor Robertson, some of these others that are doing it. When they're talking local issues, that seems to be a lot of local conversation, just like at the coffee shop. You get to regional and I think provincial issues, you get so many people that have a vested interest professionally, not personally, and I think that makes it tougher. But I think all of it, and Dave and I talk about SEO and all this sort of stuff all the time. It's about content, and it's about being you. John talked about it. You can tell which provincial politicians tweet themselves and which ones their staff tweet. It's awful, and you tend to not follow them anymore, pay attention when they tweet. I think showing your personality as a politician benefits you. I put goofy stuff up there as much as I put real stuff up, because it's just who I am, and I talk a lot of garbage all the time. So when I see a garbage bin overflowing with something, I take a picture of it and I go, really? We can't do better than this? And a whole conversation occurs around that. Or it could be something local, something that someone's, I haven't done this yet, but someone not looking after their house and go, man, I wish people would just cut their grass. But it's that sort of personality that I think makes the difference to a genuine conversation, to what John talked about, just the spin coming out of whatever politician.
Have you noticed, though, since your city and you as the mayor are more engaged online, has that increased attendance in the real world to events, to your weekly or your weekly-ish city council meetings, or to public input? Or are people getting engaged online figuring they don't have to come?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. I think we get more people out to our special events because we were the first city to actually launch a mobile website. So when you go to Canada Day or something, you can find out everything that's going on, or you show up to the rec center and the door's locked, you can go online to figure it out. So that's been a benefit on that side of it. We were no different than every other city. We do a budget meeting, we get 4 people to come out, and that would be our budget input. Yeah. Now we do it online, and we get hundreds of people participating online on our budget process.
And what's the quality, and I've asked this of many of our guests today, the quality of your online communications on, say, a budget, how does that compare to the 4 people who show up?
Substantially different. And talk just about quality. Last year we did a corporate strategic plan, and so part of that was doing a statistically valid phone survey. So we did that, and we did all our online stuff. The statistics that came out online were virtually the same as our phone survey. And our online wasn't targeting anyone, it was just putting the questions out there, and I think we used SurveyMonkey or something like that to drive questionnaires, but we got 500 or so it weeded out any, the soccer association asking for more artificial turf fields. It weeded out sort of special interest groups, but there wasn't much difference between the results of both of them. Cool. Which was fascinating because we all question how the quality is because someone might hijack your online.
And that's the whole thing. There's so many ways to influence the vote or influence the conversation online that you might find that it's skewed, but you're finding that that's not the case.
No, we've done neat stuff, and it is old technology, but used in a new way of having online discussions. So we're actually doing this at Metro Vancouver. We post a question online, and we have a discussion board talking about waste. And we did this in Port Coquitlam when we opened up a new dog park. So it was kind of an interesting way to let residents talk with each other as well.
That's awesome. Well, and thanks for coming here. I know you're my buddy, and that might have played in your role not to come today, so I thank you for coming. And
I'm wondering where the snacks are, because I heard all this stuff about snacks.
You know what? Because Terry Conrad, who's in the back there, when she asked me to do this, honest to God, every email, and Anthony over there, every email, I said, the pop chips, right? The pop chips are coming, right? And then today, Anthony said, the pop chips will be here at 11 o'clock. And I said, if they're not, I'm trashing this place. It's 5:12. Let's get rocking them. But there you go. But for Mayor Greg Moore and my buddy Gregory, thank you for coming out and sharing, because, you know, in all seriousness, the stuff you're doing in Port Coquitlam, I wish other cities would take a look. Yes, Port Coquitlam is small compared to, say, Vancouver, Surrey, Victoria, etc. But you, my friend, are leading the way in the communications, and I really encourage everyone here, check out cityofportcoquitlam.ca or
portcoquitlam.ca,
and
City of Poco, gregmoore.ca.
And Greg, what was your website again?
gregmoore.ca.
All right, there you go. Thank you so much for coming out. Mayor Greg Moore. Thanks, buddy.